Is a boom coming? President Trump thinks so.
The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal? Every country's called us. That's the beauty of what we do. We put ourselves in the driver's seat.
The president saying he is open to negotiations with foreign competitors like Vietnam. President Trump says he wants to lower its tariffs, Vietnam says, to zero, and some business titans are calling for other nations to follow. Look at Bill Ackman advising foreign leaders to immediately reach out to the president, and the CEO of Restoration Hardware saying, quote, leverage is how you win. And when it comes to China, President Trump saying they're getting it all wrong. And even Nancy Pelosi had this to say when it came to tariffs on China.
In terms of tariffs, I think it's interesting to note that the average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%, whereas the average Chinese MFN tariff on U.S. goods going into China is 35%. Is that reciprocal? The fact is that U.S.-China trade is a job loser.
Wow. And welcome to the second hour of the Big Money Show. I'm Dagan McDowell, joined by my co-hosts Taylor Riggs, Brian Brimberg, and Jackie DeAngelis. And joining us for the entire hour, Endeavor PAC founder Tiffany Smiley. Tiffany, I'm not going to throw market questions at you, but
you can.
Well, we're waiting for the boom. Today we watch another kaboom in the stock market, but this is disruptive in the short run. How long, the American people just want to know, how long is it going to take before it's smoother sailing?
Well, the Band-Aid needed to be ripped off. Where our country was headed and going was not in a good place. And whatever we've been doing for the past several decades, it's clearly, it wasn't working. And I think the markets are completely overreacting. We know this. They like predictability. They like stability. I think, give it some time. Trump has been very clear about that. And I think what's awesome is we are already seeing it happen with Vietnam coming to the table. I am a mom of 3 young boys, so I shop at Abercrombie, and I was in Hollister a few weeks ago, and prices were high. And so this is huge for the American people. As tariffs go up on these foreign countries, taxes will come down for American workers and families. It's a good place for our country to be. It will be a little bit of pain. There's going to be some pain spots. I'm from farmland. I think when you look at trade as far as cherries or apples, there's going to be some pain for some of our farmers that they're going to have to fight through. But I would recommend that they talk to their representatives. They talk to the White House and work deals that will help them in the interim, because we don't want to be in a situation where we have to bail out certain subsects of our economy. But I think this is a good win for the American people. We just need to be patient and hold the line. We need more revenue in our country. It's clear, our national debt, what are we sitting at? About 36 trillion. Something had to be done.
Mm-hmm. Jackie, it's interesting. Go ahead.
I'm just going to piggyback on that because I like the sound bites that we used as we were coming in of the president. And, we're so quick to judge him. He's been in office for such a short period of time. And in that time, he's moved with light speed with respect to the southern border, even with the strides that he's making to try to sort of correct what's going on in the economy. And everybody forgets about what he was handed. He was handed trillions and trillions of dollars of spending that jacked up inflation, that caused the Fed to jack up interest rates. I'm not saying higher interest rates at some point, since the housing crisis weren't warranted. They surely were, but they didn't necessarily need to be as high as they are now. And so I think he's trying to restore a little bit of balance here. And one of the things that he called for when he got into office and even before was low interest rates. And so you may not like what's happening right now, but the yield on the 10-year is below 4%. He also had a Truth Social post, and I apologize, I don't have the text of it with me. There it is. No, that's on a different channel. Oops, that was the Vietnam one. He did one where he's calling for Jerome Powell to to cut rates rather. And yesterday we closed our show saying the futures market were saying there was a 76% chance that we were going to get a bunch of rate cuts coming this year. And I think at some point, Powell's going to have to consider that. And so when you think about some of these aspects of what's happening, this reset that's happening as it plays out and takes time before the American people might feel the benefits of that tax cut, there are other factors bringing us back to sort of a norm, because I feel like the Biden administration just knocked us out to such an extreme, and now this is such an extreme way to get right back to where we kind of want to be, which is that sweet spot in the center.
Brian, I was going to.
Can I add?
Yeah.
The Federal Reserve, Ed Lawrence reported this morning there were 2 rate cuts factored in for the year.
Yes.
Now it's 5.
Right.
5 rate. It might be even more.
Is it after Powell? I wondered after Powell.
That was before Powell.
Yeah, that was pre-Powell.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens post-Powell.
Because he kind of went,
It was sort of like that.
That was pretty much what he
Wait and
was
see.
talking.
He said, "I'll wait and see. Let this
Wait
sort
and
of
see.
filter out
Yeah.
through the economy."
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
you're
off.
fine. I was just making a joke. Lloyd Blankfein returns to X, the former CEO of Goldman Sachs, for the first time this year. And he does it with a bang. He says the switchboard at the White House must be burning up with governments trying to surrender in this trade war. Why not give them a chance? Make the 10% minimum tariff immediate, but defer reciprocal for 6 months. Take the win. The president said he's going to make us tired of winning. I'm there now. I don't know if that's the right point to defer the reciprocal. I think at some point, to your point, Tiffany, got to rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
I think the deferring creates more uncertainty.
Right.
Where business leaders now really can't plan, because now what does 6 months from now look like? But it brings us back, Brian, to the idea of a 10% minimum tariff that was priced in. What does that mean versus this higher level? And you have a lot of people weighing in.
See, I don't think the Trump way to do it would be to take the thing he put out there and now defer it.
I agree.
But there is a Trump way to do this. And I'm going to be positive and say maybe that's what's happening right now. Eric Trump goes out there and tweets. He says, call this president and make a deal. It's not an accident that he did that. Okay, Vietnam. Trump puts out there the Vietnam tweet. They want to take their tariffs down to 0. If you think of it the Trump way, what he wants to do is probably get a whole string of wins that builds momentum. So he's got his chart, all those tariff rates that he says he's going to do, and he probably wants to tick down a lot of that list and say, these guys were taken down because they called me. These guys were taken down because they called me. Is that the greatest way to resolve uncertainty? Probably not, but it's the way he does things. So I'm just saying, I think there's a possibility that whatever Blankfein was asking for there, he's going to do that, but he's going to do it the Trump way, and we're going to get a couple months out, and that chart that everybody didn't like, that almost blew away in the wind, it's going to look very different because Trump had the phone calls and got something for it.
And speaking of Vietnam, Abercrombie's up 5%, Gap's up 7%, American Eagle was up 3% on news that Vietnam had called them to potentially talk about lowering tariffs.
You can go shopping.
The shoemakers that make shoes there.
The shoemakers, yes.
Nike and Lululemon, those two in particular, the Wall Street Journal has an article about it, but after the first Trump administration, they moved a lot of their production to Vietnam. And Apple moved a small sliver of their production
Which
to
is
Vietnam.
good. The markets obviously are overreacting, but coming from Main Street, this is what Main Street voted for. This is what they wanted, and they're getting it, and they're getting it very quickly. Trump is moving fast, and I wouldn't want to be the country that's calling him last on the phone to work a deal.
Right.
But was Main Street prepared for a short pain, a little pain, or a longer duration, deeper pain?
Well, I think that's still
question?
to be determined. But in the interim, it looks very positive. It's not like we're walking into a bleak outlook.
And what if we play it out one step further? If the tariffs start to resolve themselves through negotiations, say over the course of the next 3 or 4 months, but now things have slowed a little bit. So your yield is falling. But Powell decides, you know what, I do think it might be time to cut rates. And I know Trump pressuring him to do it on Truth Social is not why he's going to make his decision. He's going to be looking at the fundamentals. Now, all of a sudden, people can buy homes. Financing is less for cars. Businesses will have access to capital at lower rates than they did. That's all part of the growth engine. So if his economic bill is passed and the tax cuts get into play and all this stuff starts filtering through the market, you get some of that manufacturing back. I don't see a scenario a year from now that is as bad as everybody thinks it is today.
Well, we're hitting new session lows.
Yeah, I know.
Right now. I wonder if something didn't just happen to kind of trigger that kind of additional selling, but I'll look.
Can I just pick up quickly on something you said? Because I think this is really important. You said Main Street looks at this and hears what's happening and sees what's happening differently. And I actually agree with that. When I go back home, I watch a Trump speech or something happening there, and I watch the reactions of people in the room. When he tells a joke that people in New York City, they clutch their pearls when he says something. Where I come from, they laugh. You know, like when he goes about something a certain way out here, people say, "Oh my gosh, what is he doing?" This is the people in other parts of the country say, "I get it. I know what he's doing." That's how normal people process these things. Selena Zito is a great journalist who's followed him, and she's the one who said, with Trump, take him seriously and not literally. That was her famous line. There's an ability to filter him outside of the coastal elites that I think is sometimes very hard for the market, for Wall Street, for the financial press to get. And I'm willing to bet that in other parts of the country, they're reading this situation very differently, even with these results on the screen.
And I've always said policy over personality. I'm not going to debate the man's personality. Mr. Trump is Mr. Trump, and we know that. The policy, the way these tariffs were rolled out, because it was reciprocal and flat, it was two ideas, both, boom, thrown out there, and it is unclear, and the lack of clarity, it is unclear whether are you negotiating on the reciprocal piece to zero or to lower levels? Are you negotiating fair trade, or are you always going to have 10% on tariffs in place as the price of entry to the United States market? What is it? And the markets don't know, and the companies that operate that sell into those markets, that operate in those markets, don't know, and that are based in the U.S.